iRacing, you wanted the best, you got them four abreast. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show on dirt, the World of Outlaws.
Two rounds down, just 3 left to go. Tonight, the intensity levels for the 2019 CSI Shocks Fall Series and its youngest Dirt Midget drivers look to reach record highs. Logan Rumsey and Corey Day entered tonight's action just 3 points apart in the standings, but for 500 racers within 50 points of the top spot. And with the risks we've seen throughout the season, one mistake could change all of that. Who will take home the checker flag tonight? We'll have to see here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the virtual dirt track at Charlotte and Concord, North Carolina for the third race of the CSI Shocks Fall Series 14 and under class season. I'm Justin Prince. Joe Peak is away. Alongside me in the booth tonight is Christian Challoner. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Now, Christian, tonight sees us at a facility built just across the street from Charlotte Motor Speedway all the way back in 2000. And what we've seen in the 15 and over class race, it could be an interesting one for the 14 and under drivers. What can you tell us about this clay dirt track?
Yeah, this is a pretty new track that we've got here, and you're going to get about a 16-second lap time around this 0.4 mile track. Pretty long corners here, quite nice and wide track, and should lend itself to some really good racing like we've seen last night as well. And now I'll hand you over to our lap guide so you can see what it's like to get around this place.
Welcome to Charlotte. No, not the big oval that hosts the World 600 and the Roval. We're heading just a short walk off of Turn 4 to the dirt track. The only thing shared between the two is the name. The stadium-style facility, built in the year 2000, has nearly 14,000 seats and plays host to dirt lake models, modified sprint cars, even monster trucks, and the prestigious World of Outlaws World Finals. On iRacing, it came to the service in 2018 with the Dirt Movement and plays host to several rounds of official iRacing sanctioned dirt events as well as thousands of private league events. At 0.4 of a mile, the turns are where the action is. 10 degrees of banking awaits the drivers as they haul off into Turn 1. The short radius of the corners makes slide jobs the name of the game, rewarding the bravest drivers to send it into the corner like the postman and wrestle track position away. Boasting a day version and a night version, this allows the full dynamic sky range that iRacing offers, providing for a beautiful visual that serves as a backdrop to the even better racing. Corners that you can stack cars in 3, 4, and even 5 wide for the bravest. Lots of action, deceptively fast, beautiful backdrops. All of these things add up to what makes this place unique. This has been our guide to the Charlotte Dirt Oval. I'm Brian Yazik. Enjoy the show.
That was a look at your GSRC lap guide. As we follow on with the cars preparing for tonight's action, let's look at your Drivers' Championship, entering round number 3 of this 5-round championship. We mentioned off the top of the broadcast, Logan Rumsey doing well so far. 134 total points with a feature victory so far. Corey Day in second, and Jonathan Schaefer, the Junior Motorsports late model driver who made his first appearance with that team just in the past month or so, rounds out the top 3. Lucius and Hannigan round out the top 5 in the standings. It's been a competitive championship run so far, Christian.
Yeah, that's for sure. We've definitely seen a lot of good racing in this series, and I mean, the first 2 rounds it's kind of always come down to right at the very end. We saw the last race where it literally came down to the last restart before the winner was decided. We had pretty much domination the whole night up until that point.
The question is, who's going to be able to dominate tonight's action? as we get ready to take a look at tonight's race details presented by Competition Suspension Incorporated. CSI has become the shock of choice for many of today's top professionals. They've won over 5,000 races and many track, regional, and national championships around the world. To learn more, visit competitionsuspension.com. As you can see, our third round of 5 in these Dirt Midgets, fixed setups for the drivers. But keep an eye on qualifying. Those top 12 positions are locked at the A main. Everybody else will have to go to the heat system. And that, again, applies a lot of pressure we've seen in both divisions so far to not make a mistake in qualifying, so you have the track position to compete for a feature victory and strong points.
Yeah, we can definitely see that there is only 18 tonight in the race, so everybody will go through to the feature, but you do have to keep in mind that even though the top 12 is inverted through qualifying, it's still an advantage to definitely be inside that group. At least that way, then you're guaranteed to be starting inside the top 12. And if you end up going through the heat, yeah, there's no penalty tonight. You're definitely going to go through, but there's definitely a difference between starting in 18th and starting in 13th.
Yeah, that's a massive difference, and we've seen a majority of the times, if you look back to even the 15 and over class, most of the drivers have not been able to find their way up to the lead from the back. But let's take a look here. Times on the left side pylon. They're a bit slower than last night, as it is an earlier start time compared to the under-lengths 15 and over race. Day is on top of the pylon, followed by Rupert, Schaefer, Springer, and Lucius round out the top 5. The times in the 16 flats to 16 ones, as these drivers continue to prepare for tonight's action and try not to knock the walls down here. What are your expectations in terms of what we see racing tonight?
Well, I think what we're definitely going to see is everybody starting out on the bottom, and then like they've done in this practice session, once the bottom goes away, they're all migrating up to the top and trying to find what they can up there. Lap times do drop off quite a lot when that happens. As you said, they start out running the 16s and 16 flats, and just looking at some of the guys now, they're almost running a second or more slower than that by running that top line. But with the bottom as gone as it is, the top definitely becomes viable, and with the race being relatively short, you have to be on the lookout for when the track changes, and if you're the first person to go to that new line, you will be able to reap the rewards from it.
A lot of the 1400 drivers trying that cushion, for example, in the practice, because there's the chance that might come in into lap 20 or so in the feature. That's when it came in last night. Want to quickly bring up the weather conditions for tonight. Nearly identical at this point of the broadcast compared in the 15 over series. 78 degrees in air temp, 71 degrees for the clay dirt surface, minimal wind, a bit of humidity as well for tonight's action, Christian.
Yeah, and I think that's going to help them out as well, because with it being so similar to the last night, they're going to have been able to watch what happened in that race, and then they'll be able to bring it through to this one. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of guys in the practice session are already trying to make that top work, because as you said, in last night's race, we saw people around about lap 20, they were going up there. So I think with everything being so similar, the guys running tonight, they definitely have an advantage, having essentially a scout of how the track's going to work from last night.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you on that point. As we take a look at Bryce Lucius, for example, in his yellow and black number 32 machine. But again, the man on top of the standings and the second highest average starting position in the series so far is Corey Day. Your thoughts on Day and his campaign so far, coming in tonight, second in the standings, just 3 points back?
Yeah, he's had a really good season. I mean, the first round, he kind of fought his way back up to the front after an issue kind of in the mid part of the race, but he's been a contender, especially in the practice sessions and the qualifying. He's always had good speed, and I think he's kind of made it clear that what he wants to do is he wants to always start out front and then just control the race, and he was doing such a good job of that last week until right at the very end where it just didn't quite work out. But I definitely think he's the guy to beat right now.
Yeah, he might be a tough one, and some of these drivers are having a tough time. You might notice they're making a lot of contact, for example. There should note, as you mentioned, the faster lines at the bottom, there's the risk of, say, hitting the white tires that are lined up along the infield all across the racetrack. There's the chance they can flip drivers over, or they carry too much speed and flip over, say, along the cushion as they have throughout the practice session. But it's going to be difficult, I think. Bryce Lucius might be, along with this driver you're following along with, in fact, right now, and Jursic, might be one of the better opportunities to see exactly this opportunity. You'll see the white tires come up on the bottom side. If he runs that bottom line, there's the chance you clip them and cause significant damage.
Yeah, but the reality of it is that the closer you can get, so you're going to be. So it's a high-risk strategy, but if you can make it work and you're precise enough, which is extremely difficult in these cars, they're so hard to drive, then yeah, there's definitely a reward in doing so. And we saw last week guys in the heat race clip that tire and it lost them a couple of spots, and I think we can definitely see the same thing again tonight.
Yes, it's going to get interesting. 5 minutes left in practice. Remember, Hannigan was the man who led after just one lead lap. Day was the man who finished in second. He is still on top of this practice chart. The times in the 16 flats to the 17 twos across the racetrack. Who else are you keeping an eye on tonight here at the dirt track and show?
I think I'm definitely going to keep an eye on Bryce Lucius. He's been pretty consistent, and tonight he's looking pretty fast. He's ran a 16.16, which is not the outright fastest time, but he's in the ballpark, and he's been putting a lot of laps down in the session as well. So I think he's definitely got maybe more track knowledge than the other guys from doing that, and I think he'll be my guy to watch.
I'm kind of curious about him as well. I'm curious to see as well if Rumsey can improve on what we've seen in his practice time. So far, he's put in more than 48 plus lap attempts. He is resting in the pit lane in the end of the top 10 in his green, purple, and black and blue late model machine. A bit of a rougher practice session, but there's a saying. Some drivers like to put their thoughts in that, but others like to put all the 100% the effort on the racetrack when qualifying and the race and the money and points are on the line.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If there is a time for ever making mistakes, it's in the practice session. So we are seeing a lot of guys go out there and they're definitely making contact with the wall, but hey, it's making a move to the outside or all the way to the bottom in the heat, or even worse in the feature, because you're not going to have any kind of yardstick as to whether that's going to work or not. So you definitely want to be making those kind of attempts in the practice session, and it does look a little bit strange, but it's completely understandable, and I think they're all making good use of the time.
Others, meanwhile, are trying to keep nice and loose, you might have noticed, across this racetrack, but there's still a few minutes until they have to put on the serious pants, and before they head to the track for qualifying, here to say the very least. But, of course, to remind you of what they're fighting for, rather, this season. The series champion gets a tablet, a Samsung tablet to be precise, with PitLogic and $500 shock package discount. That's a $750 value. Second place gets an apparel pack and $250 in a discount for the shocks. Apparel pack is for third, along with $100 in a shock package. And as we talked about a little bit last night, Chris and I, those discounts will come a long way in building real-world race cars. A majority of the top runners so far in the point standings run dirt midgets or late models or any other type of dirt/pavement action in real life.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting factor to have in this league, is that in a lot of other leagues we see guys that kind of just racing for sort of the pride and maybe a little bit of a monetary prize, but in this league a lot of the guys in here, they're really kind of working towards something that's actually going to benefit them in real life. So I think there's a lot more on the line than it might seem compared with normal league racing here.
Still about a minute or so before we head into qualifying. What else is there to keep in mind before these drivers get ready for their hot laps to try and get themselves in that top 12?
Well, I think we've not tended to see many long runs in this series, and I think that definitely puts a premium on making sure that you get your restarts right. And I think we need to be watching out for the guys who deal with that better, and guys who can deal with how the track changes the best. And I actually think that that's something where Corey Days maybe struggled a little bit more than others. He doesn't look like he deals with the slick on the restarts quite as well as a couple of the guys around him.
Yeah, it's going to get interesting to see if Day in that 41 machine can get the job done as the lights get ready to turn on. Again, closing stages of qualifying to wrap up your top 5 in practice. Day, Rupert, along with First Springer and Lucius. Jursic rounds out the top 6. Connor Wolf just a couple tenths off that practice time and pace at the moment on the circuit. But it's time to get ready for qualifying to see who will mark themselves into the top 12 and get ready for the potential invert. As these drivers buckle up and get ready for their qualifying sessions, let's take a look at your qualifying details presented by PitLogic. PitLogic is the most comprehensive chassis and shock setup application on the market. Available on Google Play and the Apple App Store. You can also check it out at competitionsuspension.com/CSI-Logic-app. Again, to remind the fans watching for the first time, 3 laps, 5 minutes to set the times. Track stayed at 25%, and these drivers must make it in the top 12 to be a part of that invert to secure the best track position. Already, just about everybody has jumped onto the racetrack here, Christian.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at a lot of guys look like they're trying to wind up on the top side of the track and maybe kind of waste those first 2 laps and then really kind of have a lot of momentum build up so that their third lap is everything that they're going to have by ducking back down to the bottom.
Right now you're looking at Springer. He's going to be one of the first drivers to put in a time. He is the slowest out of the drivers so far. In fact, in the top 5 of the 16.8, the fastest is Lucius with a 16 flat. Moving up behind him is Schaefer and Jursic, Jet Barnes, and Ryland Gray inside the top 5 at the moment. But still 2 lap attempts to go as you follow along board with Lucius.
Yeah, and it looks like a couple of guys out here are struggling to keep it right down on the bottom. And I think that's really hurting them in terms of times. We're seeing a much bigger spread in qualifying this week than we have done in the past too.
Lucius, a 16 flat is his fastest, but the man on top of the pylon is a 16.007. It's Logan Rumsey. He, on his final lap attempt, or second to last rather, having the quickest. Looking now at one of the last drivers making their way around the racetrack. This is the 41 of Corey Day. His fastest, however, not as quick as practice, a 16.197 in the thick of things inside that top 12. Only one driver yet to put in a qualifying time. It is Chris Rupert. He's the last car running on the circuit and just put in a 16.357. He's also running with Hartley, we should know, pardon me.
Yeah, we've seen Eddie Hartley was one of the last drivers to go out, and it looks like he's trying to get a line of work in the middle of the track, and it's not really what we've seen from some of the faster guys, but maybe he's just trying to sort of book his place in the feature quite sort of comfortably rather than having that risk of running all the way down on the bottom and having to go through to the heat.
16.348 for Hartley, Rupert a 16.357. He's getting ready to be the last driver to put in a time, but those drivers have basically secured themselves inside the top 12. That top 12 is Rumsley, Lucius, and Rupert up to third with a 16 flat all of a sudden, Christian.
Yeah, he came in there right at the end and really made it happen.
Schaefer and Jursic round out the top 5. Barnes, Day, Stencil, Gray, Hartley, Springer, and Collins are all inside the top 12. The slowest time was a 16.3. Then it's 0.3 off to Reed Whitney, with Wolf, Coons, Crouch, and Wood all going to have to go through the heat system tonight. Just one heat for this racing action. Those drivers will take to the track now as we take a quick look at your starting grid. Just 5 drivers will take place in this 15-lap heat. Whitney, Wolf, Coons, Crouch, and Wood will be those 5 drivers. Once again, Samuel Johnson up in the control tower. We'll keep a close eye on this action. Let's look at your heat details once again presented by PitLogic. To remind you once again, 15 laps is your distance. Track state does transfer over from the qualifying. The top 3 are supposedly to transfer. We should note though, however, Christian, we had this last night with one heat. Because of how there was just the one heat in the 15 and over class, 6 drivers advanced. So these drivers will be fighting for starting position essentially, possibly.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because of the numbers that we've got, it would be an 18-man feature. As it stands, we're going to have 17 go through, so we don't need to run the second heat because everybody would qualify anyway. But this is a good opportunity for the guys in the heat to try and work themselves some racecraft, and they get a little bit of a head start with the track state and so on, and they're going to, yes, they're going to start behind the guys who qualified in the top 12, but they're going to have a little bit more race knowledge when it comes to the feature.
That could be vitally important. And remember, the track state does carry over as well from this particular heat into the warm-up session and then into the feature. Again, the control car will be Whitney here alongside Wolf. Who are you keeping an eye on out of these 5 drivers in this heat?
Well, I was actually surprised to see Crouch not make it through into the top 12, so I think I'm going to keep an eye on him and see what his plan is here. He lapped quite significantly slower in qualifying than he'd been able to run in practice, 0.3 slower, so I've got to wonder if maybe he just couldn't get the laps together, or perhaps he was trying to sort of hit that 12th place and get himself through to the invert pole.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting once we get to that warm-up how that invert's going to come in as well. But these drivers, they're looking for the best track position now. This is to set 13th on back in the field for tonight's feature. Again, Whitney will be in control of the field in his red CSI machine. You're following on board with Cale Coons. His number 2 machine will start in P number 3 as the iRacing official pace truck is off. Whitney picking up speed, already on the loud pedal by a country mile. As they get the green flag up on the stand, we're underway for the dirt track at Charlotte.
The guys on the outside were really caught napping on that one, and they've been cycled all the way back to 4th and 5th.
Whitney, the earliest start by anybody in any of the races on a start or restart in this entire week at the dirt track at Charlotte. He is pulled away from Cale Coons. Austin Woods up to 3rd, Crouch to 4th. Connor Wolf, however, got hit from behind, is all the way back in the 5th position. Way far back from the battle for 3rd.
Yeah, Connor's had a kind of a terrible start to this, and he went from 2nd to 5th, and now he's gonna really struggle to make anything happen here. He's fallen really far back.
And already Wood, I should rather say, falling back from Crouch because they made some contact as well through turns 3 and 4. But everyone else has now gotten spread out. But this is getting to where it can get interesting. The contact for 2nd spot. Coons gets spun around. Keeps it going, but goes all the way back to the 5th position in the... And Christian, right now, these drivers being very aggressive on the bottom side. Another slide job cuts the nose off of Wolf as we follow along with the driver in 3rd, Wood, who spins himself out. Keeps it going, gets it off the top. Moves all the way to the berm, back up to the outside wall. He gets squished against the wall. Wolf goes around spinning. And this is not how some of these drivers wanted this heat race to go as we go back up front, where Whitney and Crouch have pulled away from the rest of the group.
Yeah, everybody's been really, really aggressive, and there is a bit of a slick line in the middle, and it looked like when Crouch and Coons got together, that's what happened. It looked like Coons ended up in the slick, and Crouch just came off the corner with so much more speed, and they just got together like as they got back onto the straightaway. But still, there's been a lot more action than I think any of us were expecting, especially for a 5-car heat.
It's a 2-car fight, though, for the race lead to take home P13 on the starting grid for the feature. Crouch working hard at the bottom, nearly makes contact, slows up Whitney. Side by side, Whitney slows up. Brenham Crouch takes the race lead just past the halfway point as the driven Midwest driver comes across the stripe, takes 7 laps to go this time.
Yeah, very aggressive move right there. It did look like there was a little bit of contact. It looked like it just pushed Whitney up a little bit on exit and wasn't able to carry the speed off to beat Crouch down in the next corner. But yeah, again, it's just a really, really aggressive moves going on, especially for the heat.
And that bottom side seems to be really quick, especially as close to the grass, you said, as you can get without hitting the tires on that berm. Right now, Crouch is the closest out of the whole field. Whitney's trying to keep it more to the middle line. He's lost 2 car lengths that past corner alone by going to that line.
Yeah, it definitely looks like the lower you can run on the track, the better. But as we said before, there's high risk, and Crouch looks like he's leaving himself just about a car width. So relatively conservative right now, but I don't think it'll be that conservative when we get through to the feature. I think we'll see you guys right down on the grass.
Should note that Wood has parked his car in this heat race. He will have to prepare instead for the feature at the back of the field. Drivers reaching the final couple laps, 3 to go. Up on the scoring pylon, Crouch leads by 1.4 seconds last time by, a 16.473. He also has the fastest lap in the entire race so far tonight. He continues to gap himself forward. He'll take 2 to go this time by.
Yeah, this was really why I thought he was the guy to watch for this. I honestly didn't expect to see him down in the heat, but he made short work of getting himself to the front, and now he's pulling away.
Brenham Crouch getting the white flag this time by. The gap continues to grow, but ever since Crouch found his way up to the point, he's been able to take control in this heat race. And now he'll get to start in P13 for the feature. Brenham Crouch, the Texas driver, takes the checkered flag and wins the heat race on the dirt track at Charlotte. For the CSI Shocks Fall Series 14 and under class, Whitney second, Coons goes home in third, Wolf and Wood round out the 5 drivers in the heat. Those drivers will start Ps 13 through 17 in that finishing order, as they'll now take to the racetrack in the invert. It's going to make things interesting when we go and look at the full grid here. Barnes will lead them to the green flag alongside Jursic. This is going to mean a lot of the fast drivers are going to be in the midst of the Hornets net, Christian. Hornets nest, rather.
And I think that's where we're going to really see a lot of action. We saw even in the heat, people were being very, very aggressive, and I think the races are pretty short. You've only got a 40-lap race, and as we've seen, the cautions, I do expect we'll see some cautions, and they do take the laps out of the race. So you have to be aggressive, and I think we'll see even more guys trying to get all the way down to the tires to make a move happen. I think some contact passes are inevitable here.
I think so too. We've seen a lot of that contact in the practice. We've seen some of it in the heat race, and now 17 drivers will get ready for this race. Still a few minutes for them to prepare. Now that we've seen how this racing can develop, who feel this helps the most strength-wise when we take this green flag, especially with how the grid has been set?
Well, we've seen Jet Barnes run at the front of the field a couple of times this season so far, and I think definitely being at the point is going to be a significant advantage, and being the controller on the restarts is huge. And as we saw in the heat, if you go early, you can really pull out a big advantage and be kind of safe by the time you get to 1. So I think Jet Barnes is in a great position here.
Who do you feel, though, is in a bit of a rough position that might have an uphill battle for tonight?
Well, I think Corey Day's probably in a little bit of a rough position. We've seen him make some good moves in the past weeks, but starting down in 7th, if he gets trapped down on the bottom with how that slick line develops, I think it's going to make it difficult for him on subsequent restarts. And we've also got Rumsey there around with him, and we saw Crouch was very, very aggressive in the heat, making his way forwards. And I think if Crouch gets up to some of those guys, he's going to make their life really difficult.
I kind of agree with you on that point as well. As we take a look at some of these drivers use the different lines. One of the main things, though, again, remember, the session state does carry over from the heat, so these drivers, they may be not running that bottom, but there is a reason they're running this top to middle top line. They're trying to get the cushion in, like it was last night in the 15 and over race, where it took until lap 20 for drivers to be faster off the corner on the top.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting that we're seeing that. There is definitely a group of guys out there who are determined to be running that higher line and trying to work it in so that they can have something, well, some options when the race starts. And I think it's cool to see that there's that kind of intelligence going on in this field.
Now you have some very strong and very young drivers in this field in the 14 and over class. They have under 2 minutes to go until they take the green flag here. What else are you keeping an eye on tonight before we take this green flag for the feature?
Well, I think we definitely need to keep an eye on those white tires on the bottom. I think they have the potential to really make or break somebody's race tonight. And really just the track state. It's always the track state and how those lines work in and how that affects how the racing is going to be. And especially on restarts, we've seen a lot of times where the slick in the middle of 3 and 4 has made people's life really, really difficult getting away on the restarts, and then has left them very vulnerable when they get down to turn 1.
Indeed, as you follow along with the last of these drivers in the final minute or so in the session. Let's quickly take a time, if we can, to look at the CSI race details, once again presented by Competition Suspension Incorporated. Tonight's feature, 40 laps distance for the drivers tonight. Again, fixed setups to remind you, but there is caution flags. One thing to note, the series did shift from doubles file restarts to single file at the halfway point of last night's 15 and over race. So that is something to keep an eye on if that happens this evening in the 14 and under class.
Yeah, and I think that could be a big a big influence, especially in terms of the chaos that we tend to see on restarts. Obviously, single file is a little bit more spread out, but with that knowledge that happened last night and that the possibility that it'll happen again tonight, I think that's going to make guys even more determined to move their way forwards, because at least double file in restarts, you're not so far back if you say 7th in line, but that then translates down to being 14th in line if it's a single file restart. So there's a lot more at stake.
These drivers about to put that stake onto the grill to fight for positions. Who will come away with the most points? Who will come away with the checkered flag? And who will have the rough night? This is a chance for some drivers to take control of the championship. Let's take a look at how they'll sort things out for tonight's starting grid as they roll their way from the infield onto the clay surface. Bringing them to the green flag tonight, it's Jet Barnes. On the inside of row number 1, it'll be Travis Jurczyk in P number 2. Jonathan Schaefer starts inside row 2 in P number 3, with Chris Rupert in 4th. Bryce Lucius, remember, he was blistering quick in practice and qualifying. He starts 5th. Logan Rumsey having to work his way from 6th position tonight. The fastest driver in practice, and Corey Day starts in 7th, with Seth Stencil in 8th position. Rylan Gray starts 9th, and Eddie Hartley rounds out the top 10 this evening, Christian.
Then our last two to go through from qualifying is Grayson Springer, who's going to be starting in 11th, and Colton Collins is going to be starting 12th. Then moving through to the guys who advanced from the heat. So Brennan Crouch, he was extremely fast in the heat, won that race. He's going to be starting 13th alongside Reed Whitney in 14th. Then we've got Cale Coons and Connor Wolf, who will be starting 15th and 16th. And then we're going to have Austin Wood, who will be the last driver taking the flag tonight, in 17th.
That's a look at your starting grid for round number 3 of the CSI Shocks Fall Series 14 and under class here at the dirt track at Charlotte. Drivers getting the last of their instructions here. What is your advice to these young drivers before they take the green flag?
Well, I think they've definitely got to be smart but aggressive on these restarts. There's a lot to be lost if you're overly aggressive and you make contact, and especially if you get looped around. But at the same time, the race is very short, so you have to kind of pick your battles here. And I think, especially the guys maybe running inside the, say, top 6, they should really just be looking to get a clean pole and kind of get it all sort of figured out so that they've got some kind of reference points to work on the later restarts.
iRacing official pace truck is off. Jet Barnes in his bright red, blue, and yellow machine brings them to the green flag. We're underway from the dirt track at Charlotte. A great run from Barnes on the bottom side. A slow start for Jurczyk on the top side, as Schaefer moves his way quickly to second spot and takes that high side away. Side by side, 3 wide for third on back.
Yeah, so Barnes made a really good restart, but now he's under threat, and he's lost that position already by the time they started lap 2.
And Stencil's flipped over. We stay green. That is at the back of the field, but Schaefer is now leading them into turn 3. He charges hard from the bottom, goes to the slick stuff all the way back up to the cushion. Rest of the drivers cross him up on the bottom. Jurczyk falls underneath. Also finding on the bottom side along the berm is Corey Day. Where did he come from all the way back from the middle of the Hornet's Nest?
Yeah, look like he's doing a really solid job running all the way down at the bottom right against those white tires, and he's come all the way from 7th to the lead already.
Heck of a start from Day. He is now in the lead. That last time by has just pulled a car length up on the cushion. Schaefer rides that way, but Rumsey is falling in. He goes for the slide chop for second. Back for the cross is Schaefer. The late model driver on the inside. Rumsey, one of the best dirt drivers in the service on the high side. Gets the momentum off the corner. He moves up to second. So just like that, the drivers who started in the midst of rows 3 and 4 are now P 1 and 2.
Yeah, they've done an awesome job moving forward as quickly as they had. I couldn't believe that Corey Day got all the way to the lead in 3 laps. And already we see guys already all right up against the wall.
That's kind of an Alex Bergeron type of performance for reference there. But Day over-rotated up at the front, loses some time, about 3-4 car lengths to Rumsey. That time, 3 total tenths lost. They will start to reach lap traffic though. Rylan Gray is up the road. He had some trouble at the back of the field. He is the last car running. They're about to have to deal with that blue and black machine. You see him right there in turn 1.
Yeah, we see Day starting to move around the track a little bit. He ran the bottom in 3 and 4 last time before going straight back to the top. I think that's definitely interesting for the guys behind him because if they're seeing him move around, then it means that he's not really that confident in where he's running and the pace advantage that he's got right now.
He's going to have to move off the cushion, though. Lap traffic stays up high. Day tries to use the middle to bottom. Loses some time, though, to Rumsey. Rumsey rides back up the cushion as well as the race leader as you follow on board with that lap traffic in Gray. Gray this time stays on the cushion once more. Sliding by is Day. He'll get out of the picture, but a crossover from the lap car. Rumsey closes up the gap. 3 wide, Nika 2 wide with the lap traffic. Gray stays in the middle. Rumsey takes the high side. Day holds on to the race lead. Near confusion as they had to deal with Gray.
Yeah, and Day lost out a lot there. Rumsey's really closed down on him. Day was moving around the track a lot to try and get past that lap car, but Rumsey just ran the top the entire time.
And now Rumsey is moving to the bottom side, running towards that berm, making now back to the cushion in turns 1 and 2. As he's closing up the gap, he was the fastest car last time by 5/100ths of a second. Can he keep it up is the question. They have pulled away from third on back, who are all bottled up behind Gray. Still following on at the leaders, though, as they still ride the cushion. 16.7 for Day in the clean air. Rumsey down to the 16.9s.
Yeah, it definitely looks like running right up against the wall is where you want to be, but as we've seen, the lap traffic can make your life a little bit difficult if you're going to stay up there, and we see Day go all the way down to the bottom in a 1 as he's trying to clear another lap car.
That time it's Austin Wood holding them up. There's also trouble for the lap cars. Third on back, Schaefer, Lucius, and Rupert just got by. They were held up for at least 2 or 3 seconds on the racetrack. You look at them, they just got by Gray. So that is how much they lost. We look now towards some of the other drivers as you follow along with Crouch. He has been charging through the field. Started 13th. He is up to 7th spot. He's your biggest mover so far outside of Day.
Yeah, he's been really, really aggressive, making some huge sliders on the bottom, but he's making it happen. He, like you say, he's all the way up from 13th into 7th.
Just past 25 laps to go, coming to 24 to go for all these drivers on the lead lap. Look at the top 2, though. They are stuck in traffic. Whitney's now in front of them. Day rides the outside, has to get off the gas. Rumsey follows along on the cushion. Lap traffic this time elects to stay all the way along the bottom side. That helps the top 2 because that extra momentum allows them to just about clear and completely clear by 1 and 2. But there's a lot of traffic, a strong mix of traffic we're about to see for these drivers. Rumsey and Day are about to reach 14th, 13th, and 12th in the next 5 to 10 laps.
Yeah, and I think this is actually hurting Day the most. He looks like he's really struggling to kind of pick a line when he does get to traffic, and I think if they go to the bottom, it helps him out a lot, but I think if they stay on the top, it actually helps Rumsey.
And he nearly hit the back end of Connor. Wolf had to cut to the bottom instead. This time he squeezes Wolf up into the wall. That's not polite driving as Day cuts him off back up to the cushion. Able to clear on by, but that gained him regardless of the bit of a question. About 3-4 car lengths on Rumsey. Wolf tries to attack on the bottom side, can't do so, however, as Rumsey now tries to look to ride the cushion. Wolf gives him the middle line, goes to the middle line to give him some space, but all of that has allowed Day to pull away by 0.7 of a second.
Yeah, and there's a big gap that he's opened up. It's going to take Rumsey a long time to run that back down, or he's going to have to hope that a lap car kind of gets in the way and checks Day up just a little bit to bring him back into the fight.
Looking back towards P number 6, though, that is heating up. That's where Crouch has continued to move up. He has just made the slider on Jursic, going from the top to the bottom, and now he's up on the cushion. So he is now your biggest mover. He is running the 17.4s. That is around 0.4 of a second quicker than the majority of the drivers around him.
Crouch has been super aggressive, but it is paying off for him. He's making it happen, and I don't think it'll be long before we see him fighting to get inside the top 5.
I wouldn't be surprised either, because that top 5 car in Rupert is slowly being reeled in by Crouch. The leaders, though, by the way, have reached more of the lap traffic. This time, 2 drivers. Springer elects to let Day on by. He stays on the bottom this time. He was trying to make a pass on Steph Stencil, and you have to give a shout out to Stencil, though. Remember, he had trouble in the opening laps, mentioned that in the call. He nearly went upside down. And now we got a car spinning around. Contact with the race leader, Springer at 360. We still stay green. Day hit him with the left rear tire.
Yeah, it looked like he was trying to cross him over and maybe get his lap back, but just caught the rear tire of Day and sent himself around there.
Still stay green as Sprinter loses some time. Day, though, able to pick up a bit as he gets by Stencil. So he's now lapped his way up to 12. Cale Coons is the next driver up in front. Coming to 14 laps to go in tonight's feature here at the dirt track at Charlotte. The gap has grown, though, to 1.4 seconds, and Day has been the fastest car on the track for some time. 17 ones to 17 twos. Compared that to the battle for P5 and 6 on back. They're running in the 17 fives. That is where Jursic just had got in a bit of a battle along with Barnes and company. Currently Barnes in 7th, Crouch still in 6th.
Yeah, I think Barnes has got to be a little bit disappointed here. He obviously started with the pole, but he quickly lost the lead, and he's just been kind of running in the mid-pack since then, although he is running a decent pace right now.
And hold on a second, Jursic actually just pulled to the pit lane, joining Whitney, so Jursic having to take a fast repair at the 10 laps to go mark. So something happened to the 98 machine where he had to come down for an unscheduled stop and fall back to 11th position, Christian.
Yeah, and actually we're just speaking about Jet Barnes as well, and I just saw, as we cut away from him, he just clipped the wall and he managed to save the car, but he lost a lot of time and he's now even further back on that 6th spot.
Things are getting cracking as we have gone green the entire way so far. 9 to go for the leaders. You're looking at Barnes as he tries to pick up some dirt along that cushion. He's the second last car on the lead lap. Hartley is the last car on the lead lap cycle, who's just been lapped by Corey Day. The driven machine, he's been driving the heck out of his purple machine. He laps Wolf, trying to at least a second time, but he has dominated as soon as he got up to the front in 3 laps. He's been able to pull away that time too hard on the wall. Wolf makes contact. They keep it straight.
Day's got a big advantage over second right now, but he's still in a hugely dangerous area. He's having a lot of contact with these lap cars, and it's definitely not over yet. He has the lead, but just a small mistake amongst these lap cars could really cost him.
Yeah, he picked up 0.6 of a second on Rumsey before that contact. Lost a bit of ground, though. Just 0.2, though, despite the door banging to that 41 machine as you look on him on your screen. Coming to 5 laps to go. At this point, what do you do if you're Rumsey? Because we're approaching the point of no return for this race as well.
I think if you're Rumsey, I think you've got to kind of accept...
Car riding the wall, it's Wolf. He's upside down in the middle of the racetrack, and we are somehow still green. Wolf is upside down on the bottom track, out of the car, and we are somehow still green with under 5 laps to go. Coming up 4 to go, as the gap still for the leader is 3 seconds, though, for the 41 of Corey Day.
Yeah, this race is definitely Corey Day's to lose right now. He's got a big lead and only a couple of laps to go, and really the lap cars ahead of him, they look like they're running up against the top. They're being quite nice and predictable for him, so I think this is pretty much his to lose.
Half a second slower last time for Rumsey. He needs a miracle to have some luck here. Coming to two laps to go this time by. But for Corey Day, he has been one of the best drivers in the point standings this season. He has been having a strong campaign. He has pulled away the gap from the points leader in Rumsey. He will get the white flag this next time by, and if he can hold on, will be able to tie the points lead heading into the final 2 rounds of the season. White flag is up. Race is official. Day keeping it calm on the bottom of the racetrack. Speed is bobbling on that rear bottom as he looks to close it out. Rides the cushion and the berm. Very slow, nice and steady. He'll take the checker flag. Corey Day wins it at the dirt track at Charlotte. Second spot, Rumsey. Lucius rounds out the top 3. Schaefer and Crouch, and Rupert, I should say, round out the top 5. Crouch in 6th. And a heck of a performance, Christian, by Corey Day tonight.
Yeah, I think it all came down to right at the beginning there. He got to the lead so quickly, way quicker than I think any of us expected, and from that point onwards, he just controlled the race. He had a couple of incidents with lap cars, but never really phased him, and he was continually able to pull away from Rumsey when he needed to. And
not only that, your first feature in either class, the 15 over or the 14 under class, to go from green flag to checker flag. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your post-race coverage live from the dirt track at Charlotte. You're watching the Global Sim Racing Channel. Welcome back, everyone, to the Global Sim Racing Channel's coverage of the CSI Shocks Fall Series 14 under class. Here from the dirt track at Charlotte, I'm Justin Prince. Alongside the booth is Christian Chalmers, Sean Ambrose in the director's seat as we look at your unofficial race results. Corey Day, it took him just 3 laps to go from 7th to 1st. In one of the strongest performances we've seen in a while, he dominates his way to the checkered flag and wins by 4.8 seconds over Logan Rumsey. Bryce Lucius finishes in 3rd with Jonathan Schaefer in the 4th spot. Chris Rupert rounds out the top 5. One of the biggest movers tonight, though, was Brennan Crouch. Went from 13th up to 6th position. At the time of the checkered flag, he was the last car in the lead lap, just at the edge of it. Over Eddie Hartley, first driver 1 lap down. Seb Stenzel, it was a heck of a recovery drive, you can say, for him. He went from middle of the pack, trouble in the first lap, to 17th, up into 8th position at the checker. He finished in front of Jursic and Grayson Springer, who round out the top 10 of the drivers 1 lap down, Christian.
Yeah, then we had Rylan Gray. He was the first driver, 2 laps down, coming home in 11th, started 9th. Last 2 spots, probably not really the performance he was looking for, but still a solid job. Jet Barnes, I think he's got to be disappointed with that. He started on the pole, and then we saw him make late contact with the wall, and unfortunately for him, finishes 4 laps down in 12th. Colton Collins, another driver, finishing 5 laps down in 13th. Austin Wood, 14th. Cale Coons, 15th. Connor Wolf in 16th. And then Reed Whitney finishing 17 laps down in 17th.
That's a look at your unofficial race results. Once again, thanks to Samuel Johnson up in the control tower for tonight's racing action. But your thoughts on what we've seen this evening in terms of the type of racing we've seen, going from green flag to checker flag for the first time this season for either division?
Yeah, I think that was really surprising that we saw it go green all the way. I'm actually a little bit shocked that we didn't have at least 1 or 2 yellows there with some of the incidents we saw. But I think the interesting thing for me about that is that it allowed us to see what kind of the pace differential was like across the field, and kind of how guys dealt with just the track sort of working its way in. And I think what we really saw there was that Corey Day and Logan Rumsey are really... They are at the sharpest end of the field here, and there's a good reason why those 2 guys are fighting with each other, and they're both really, really strong. It looks like it kind of flips and flops based on how the track wears and how that kind of matches each driver, and I think it was great to see them have a really good battle there.
One thing to keep an eye, though, on is currently the unofficial points tallies show Day and Rumsey tied at the top of the standings with 201 points apiece. It's going to get very interesting in those closing rounds, to say the very least, Christian. But still, these drivers have to get ready to go to Kokomo for the next round for this season. Still, we'd like to say goodbye for tonight's action. Thank you very much for tuning in for this evening's racing for the Dirt Track at Charlotte. We'd also like to thank Garrett Andrews for organizing this competitive fall series. We'd also like to thank the companies that provide our software and hardware for our broadcast listed here up on your screen now. Additional thanks had to be given to Jude Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get more of her great work. Thanks to the team once again of Christian and Sean. And if you'd like to find out more about the Global Sim Racing channel, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. If you'd like to help support the channel, you can check out our merchandise for sale as well at gsrc.storenvy.com. You can also check out our social media at Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, all in one word, at Instagram at GSRC_Gram as well. Don't forget to head over to our YouTube page and hit that big red subscribe button as well as the notification bell so you don't miss a moment here on the Global Sim Racing channel. As mentioned, the next races for both the 15 and over and 14 under divisions head to the Kokomo Speedway for the pre-ultimate round of the 2009 Fall Series for Competition Suspension Incorporated Shocks. Should be an entertaining one. You can also mark down more entertaining action for other series listed up on your screen. Check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.